Click, click, click. The sounds of the monster walking through my home, its nails clicking against the hardwood floors, echoed like a sinister metronome counting down the moments of my dread. The night had fallen heavily, shrouding my room in shadows that seemed to pulsate with a life of their own, creeping closer with every passing second. Hiding under my bed, the space felt simultaneously like a sanctuary and a prison. The dust motes danced in the sliver of moonlight that slipped through the crack in the curtains, mocking me with their lightness. The air hung heavy, thick with the metallic scent of fear and something else. Something feral. My heart hammered against my chest, a wild drumbeat threatening to betray my hiding spot to the creature that now roamed my home. I dared not breathe too loudly, fearing the sound would carry, revealing my presence. How did it get in? The question circled my mind like a vulture, but the answer lay drowned in the sea of my panic. I remembered my parents' laughter from earlier in the evening, a sound as comforting as the warmth of a fire in winter. Now, an eerie silence had befallen the house, broken only by the occasional click of nails against wood and the distant sound of breaking waves against the cliffs. A lullaby of despair. My imagination conjured images of the beast, its form obscured by the shadows that it now commanded. The stories my mother whispered of monsters that lurk in the dark, waiting for the night to cloak their misdeeds, played in my mind. I had always thought them fables, meant to scare me into obedience. Now, I wasn't so sure. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the world and its current horrors. But the darkness behind my eyelids offered no reprieve, painting vivid pictures of my parents' fate. A whimper escaped my lips, muffled by the hand I clamped over my mouth. Thud, thud. The sound of heavy footsteps approached, each one a death knell to my hopes. I could hear its breathing now, a ragged, guttural sound that seemed to scrape against the walls, filling the room with its presence. It was close. So close I could almost feel the heat of its breath. My heart skipped, then raced, as if trying to escape the inevitable. Why doesn't it just leave? The thought was a desperate plea to the universe. Please, just leave. But the universe, in its vast indifference, offered no solace. The creature lingered, as if savoring the hunt, knowing its prey was cornered and powerless. Time stretched, each second a lifetime of terror. I prayed for release, for the dawn to break and banish this nightmare. Yet, I knew the night was long and full of terrors that no light could dispel. The floorboards creaked ominously as the creature moved away, its departure as silent and enigmatic as its arrival. But the threat of its return hung in the air, a specter more terrifying than the creature itself. I remained motionless, a statue carved from fear, waiting for the first light of dawn to grant me the courage to emerge from my hiding place. The night pressed on, a symphony of horror played out in the silence of my room. And in that suffocating darkness, I understood the true nature of fear. Not the fear of the known, but the paralyzing terror of the unknown, lurking just beyond the edge of sight. Beneath the bed, the shadows grew thicker as the night stretched on, a cloak woven from the very fabric of fear. The world beyond my makeshift sanctuary seemed to pulse with an unseen menace, a reminder of the horror that roamed my home. In the suffocating darkness, my mind raced, desperate for a distraction from the terror that gripped my heart. It was then, in the depths of my despair, that a memory surfaced, a beacon in the night. My mother, her voice soft and soothing, recounting tales of old to lull me into sleep. Among the myriad of stories she shared, one stood out, a legend, whispered in hushed tones as if the very act of speaking it aloud could summon the creature it described. Long ago, my mother's voice echoed in the recesses of my mind. There existed beings, not of this world, creatures that walked the line between man and myth. Among them, the most feared was the one that prowled under the cloak of night, bound by the cycle of the moon. It was said to be both man and beast, a cursed soul condemned to walk the earth in torment. I remembered how her words had sent shivers down my spine, even as the warmth of her presence offered a sense of security. The story spoke of a time when our world and the realm of shadows were one. A time when creatures of the night roamed freely, their howls a constant reminder of the thin veil that separated us from the darkness. "This creature," she continued, her voice a whisper, as if sharing a secret, "is driven by a hunger that cannot be sated, a thirst for that which makes us most human. It preys upon the unwary, those who stray too far from the light, ensnaring them in an unending nightmare." The memory of her words brought an icy chill, the realization dawning on me that the creature from my mother's stories could very well be the same entity that now hunted me. The parallels were too striking to ignore. The way it moved, a predator stalking its prey, the echo of its nails against the floor, a sinister melody that heralded doom. As the night wore on, my thoughts were consumed by the legend. The creature, a phantom of the night, became entwined with the reality of my situation. It was as if the story had come to life, a tale of horror unfolding within the walls of my own home. The tension built with each passing moment, a crescendo of fear that held me in its grip. I was trapped in a nightmare, one from which there was no awakening. The darkness under the bed felt like a tomb, a final resting place for those lost to the night. And yet, amid the terror, a sliver of hope persisted, the hope that dawn would break, banishing the shadows and the creature that lurked within them. But until then, I was a prisoner of the night, waiting, always waiting, for the moment when the monster would reveal itself from the darkness. The night marched on with the relentless pace of a heart beating against time, each tick a reminder of the predator that lurked just beyond my fragile sanctuary. The air, thick with the scent of dread, clung to my skin like a second layer, a tangible reminder of the nightmare that had unfolded in the once peaceful confines of my home. Under the bed, the darkness had become a living entity, pulsing with the collective fear of 1,000 nights just like this one. It was a companion in my solitude, a witness to the terror that had gripped my very soul. The hours stretched into an eternity, a tapestry of time woven from the threads of anticipation and the palpable fear of what was to come. In the oppressive silence, every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind against the windows, felt like the precursor to my doom. My heart, a frantic drummer, seemed loud enough to betray my hiding place, a beacon for the beast that hunted me. I forced myself to breathe shallowly, the cool air doing little to quell the fire of my panic. And then, without warning, the creature returned. Click. Click. The sound, now dreadfully familiar, was a herald of despair. It moved with purpose, a predator honed by the instincts of countless hunts. The floorboards groaned under its weight, a morose melody that played with each step it took closer to where I lay hidden. My eyes wide with terror, my body paralyzed by fear. I could hear its breathing now, a ragged, guttural rasp that seemed to fill the room, a noxious cloud that threatened to suffocate me. The sound was closer than before, more urgent, as if it could sense my presence, could smell the fear that coursed through my veins. Time slowed, each second a drop of water in a frozen stream, each moment stretched to its breaking point. The anticipation was a torture of its own, a psychological malanga that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. And then, silence. A suffocating, pregnant pause in which the world seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, without any warning, the space around me erupted into chaos. The bed above me was violently torn away, the sudden burst of light blinding, disorienting. My sanctuary, my last vestige of safety, was gone, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. The room spun, a maelstrom of fear and confusion, as I scrambled backward, my movements erratic and fueled by panic. There, in the harsh reality of the room, stood the creature. It was a nightmare incarnate, a beast of legend brought to life. Its form was shrouded in darkness, but the moonlight that now streamed through the window revealed glimpses of a creature both man and monster. Fur, matted with the remnants of its nocturnal deeds, covered its hulking form, and claws, sharp and unforgiving, gleamed in the ethereal light. But it was the eyes that held me captive. Yellow orbs that glowed with a malevolent light. Windows to a soul consumed by the curse of its existence. They bore into me, a predator assessing its prey. I could not move, could not scream, could only stare into those yellow eyes that seemed to see into the very depths of my being. In them, I saw my fate, a reflection of the fear that had haunted me throughout the night. The creature advanced. And then, with a speed that belied its size, it reached for me, its clawed hand an instrument of fate. I felt the cold touch of the abyss as it pulled me from my hiding place, the world tilting as I was brought face to face with the monster. In its gaze, I saw not just the beast, but the myriad of souls it had claimed, a tapestry of terror woven from the lives it had shattered. A tapestry that would now include me,